Hi, it's Andy Bauer here again at Object Arts. In my previous video I showed you how you can run Dolphin Smalltalk under Mac OS X as a native application using Wine and a wrapper called WineSkin. Now in this video I'd like to go through some of the WineSkin options that you can set to perhaps improve the display and the performance. And also I'd like to go through some of the problems that still exist when running Dolphin under the Wine API. So this is about how far we got last time. We have Dolphin CE running on the Mac, and you'll notice that we still have the standard Windows frames and the standard Windows system font. So what I'd like to do is to go and change those, and there are some Wine options you can set to do that. So let's close Dolphin and save the image, and let's go down to our application icon, and if we right click on that and say show in Finder, we'll find our application icon, and let's show the package contents. And first of all, let's double click on the WineSkin application, and you'll notice there are some buttons here. We can set the screen options. So let's do that, and let's click Decorate Windows. Hit Done. And now let's move on to set some of the advanced options in WineSkin. So first of all, if you go to the Tools tab, you'll see there are a number of things you can do. Now one of the things you can do here is to use a utility called WineTricks, which can install some additional features into your Windows system or your Windows emulation system. Now you'll notice there are thousands of these. Now the one I particularly want to install at the moment is a thing called All Fonts, which will actually install a lot more than the standard default set of fonts. So you go to here and you scroll down quite a long way until you find the All Fonts wine trick, and we run that. Now obviously if you don't make use of these different fonts, there's no point installing them into your Wine installation, since they just take up extra space. Okay, and that's done. We can just say done. And another thing I think is worthwhile doing is, and that's installing the standard Mac system font, which is a font called Lucid Grand. And the way to do that, because there isn't normally a Windows font which is an accurate match for that. So the best thing to do is to actually copy the one on your Mac system. We open a Finder window and we navigate to System, Library, Fonts. You'll see in here there's a font called Lucid Grand. Okay, and we can now make a copy of that and put it into our WineSkin package. So going to our drive C, we open that, go to Windows and Fonts. You notice we have these other fonts in here which have just been installed by our All Fonts wine trick, but we don't have Lucid Grand. So let's drag that in, copy it to there, and now we'll be able to make use of that in the Dolphin image. Now if you actually take a look at the WineFix file that we used to patch our image, you'll find out that I've actually installed that into the system, so it should make use of that when we relaunch Dolphin. Let's go back now to install some more options. If we go to run the Wine config configuration utility, we can choose the desktop integration tab to go and set some fonts. So one of the fonts we can set is the message box font, and if we click the font button, we can go to scroll down and choose the Lucid Grande font which we copied over earlier. Let's make that a 9-point font. Similarly, we can also choose the menu text and set the font for that. Once again, choose Lucid Grande, and all of these things will give your version of Dolphin a much more Mac look when it's running. Okay, so now we should be in a position where we can actually go and test out the changes we've made. We click Done over here in WineSkin and quit, and now we can launch our Dolphin. And now you can see that we do indeed have the Lucid Grande font, and we also have the standard Mac window frames. Now, this makes the whole thing look much more like a Mac application, although of course you can't get rid of the fact that Windows actually has the menus local to each window frame rather than at the top of the screen. But still, if you were creating an application that you were going to wrap in this way and try and package it as a Mac app, you could probably make some changes to it which would actually make it look more like a true native application. So I mentioned earlier that there are still some issues with Dolphin running under Wine, and I'd like to go through a few of the known ones now. If I open a class browser, you'll notice that if I just resize it, whilst it behaves generally pretty well, each time I select on any icon in a tree list, you'll notice that the icon here changes to something which is incorrect. I haven't managed to find out why that is. I'll leave that up to some members of the community to perhaps try and debug through it. But possibly more important is the fact that the View Composer is somewhat screwy. If I open the View Composer, you'll see when I try and create a new shell window that the actual shell you're editing appears outside of the View Composer's composing frame. Now, this is presumably to do with the rather convoluted way that the Dolphin View Composer works. What it actually does is it takes a real window and it positions it off screen and performs all the editing on that. Now, presumably Wine is not allowing a window to be positioned off screen, so it drags it back on again. So it's rather difficult to actually use the View Composer, but you can do some editing in it if you wish. You can drag buttons out and place them on the shell view, and they'll appear here, but you just won't be able to edit them correctly. You can actually modify the properties, and all should be okay, providing that you don't close this window. You can close the View Composer itself and save down your view, but if you close this window, then you'll end up with a recursive walkback and you won't be able to get out of it. So there are ways around it, but really the View Composer needs a bit of an overhaul to be able to work under Wine. Another relatively serious problem is one where the choice of the WineSkin option to decorate the window frames, thus producing these rather nice Mac borders, actually can cause some problems when the screen is redrawing. I've seen this most notably when using the user preferences pane and dragging it around. If you drag it around quickly, sometimes it can cause the whole system to keel over. Of course, it's not doing it now, but when it does happen, I think it's possibly caused by some sort of resource starvation issue inside Wine. So it really needs somebody to take a look at that to make sure the system is completely stable. Because obviously the option to decorate the window frames is actually quite important in order to make your applications look like they are true native Mac apps. Now, one final issue that I've come across, which is fairly minor, is that when you're using the bouncing balls application in an image that's been created from Dolphin 6.0 or Dolphin 6.1, the actual bouncing ball apps doesn't work correctly, doesn't display properly. I'm not sure why this is. I think it's probably a relatively simple problem to find. But in the forthcoming Dolphin 6.2, which uses a different way of creating the icons, it all works fine, and you may have seen that working in one of the previous videos. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavour for what can be expected when running Dolphin and the apps you create with it under Wine. One thing I'd just like to do is just take a quick look at the WineFix file. So let's open the workspace, winefix.st, and you should see that each of the separate fixes I've given a WF number, just to be able to identify them if we're talking about them on the news group. And inside each method, I've put a reference to a symbol #winefix, which should make it fairly easy to track down where the changes are in the image. So for example, if we go to the class browser and say references to WineFix, you can see that here are all of the currently changed methods that have been needed to be patched to get Dolphin to work under Wine. So what I'd like to do is to make a suggestion that if any people would like to update the file to fix further bugs, they follow the conventions that I've been used so far, and then email me any changes, and I'll update the file and maintain it on the Object Arts website. I hope that's been interesting for you, and thank you for watching, and I hope to see some Dolphin Mac applications appearing in the not too distant future.